My name is George Wilson. I'm 76 years old. People like to say I'm lucky. They say it with a smile. They say it like survival is a prize. You made it. They tell me you outlived everyone, but they don't understand what that really means. I didn't win by living longer. I just stayed. I stayed when others left. I stayed when chairs emptied. I stayed when voices went quiet. And now, most days, it feels less like living and more like standing guard over a life that's already finished. I wake up early, not because I have somewhere to be, just because sleep doesn't hold me the way it used to. The house is quiet in a way that feels intentional, like it's choosing not to speak to me. I sit at the edge of the bed and wait for a moment. Sometimes I forget, just for a second. I think I'll hear her in the kitchen, or him in the hallway, or someone calling my name from another room. But the house doesn't answer. It never does. I used to think loneliness meant being alone. Now I know better. Loneliness is being surrounded by people who don't know the stories that shaped you. The young cashier at the grocery store smiles at me. She's kind. She means well, but she doesn't know who I was at 30. She doesn't know the man I became at 50. She doesn't know the mistakes that still wake me up at night. She sees an old man buying bread. That's all anyone sees now. There was a time when I didn't have to explain myself. There were people who knew my past because they lived inside it with me. My wife knew the version of me before responsibility settled in my shoulders. My brother knew the boy I was before life corrected me. My friends knew the man I pretended not to be. They remembered things I had forgotten. They reminded me who I was when I needed it. One by one they disappeared. Not all at once. That would have been merciful. They left slowly. Funerals spaced years apart. Phone calls that stopped coming. Names that turned into photographs. And every time someone left, the room got a little quieter. When my wife died, people showed up. They brought food. They sat with me. They told me. I was strong. I nodded. I thanked them. But strength had nothing to do with it. Strength would have been leaving with her. After a while, people stopped asking how I was doing. Not because they didn't care, but because time passed. Grief has an expiration date for everyone except the person living inside it. So I learned to answer differently. I'm fine, I'd say. Doing okay. It was easier than explaining that every memory had become heavier because there was no one left to carry it with me. Here's the part no one tells you about getting old. Your world doesn't shrink because you stop caring. It shrinks because the people who made it meaningful are gone. Birthdays stop feeling like milestones. They start feeling like roll calls. Each year, fewer names answer. I go to family gatherings sometimes. My children insist. They worry. About plans. I listen. I smile. But there's a distance there that wasn't always present. They don't remember the versions of me I lived the longest in. They know the ending chapters, but not the middle. They've never heard the stories the way my friends heard them. They don't laugh at the same moments. They don't pause at the same names. It's not their fault. But it's lonely all the same. Surviving everyone changes the way time feels. The future stops pulling you forward. The past starts holding you still. Every place I go feels layered with ghosts. The park bench where we used to sit. The diner where we argued about nothing. The street where I walked someone home for the last time without knowing it was the last time. I'm surrounded by people but haunted by absence. Sometimes people tell me I should feel grateful. You've lived a long life, they say. As long as you've lived, they're right. But gratitude and grief aren't opposites. They sit together. I'm grateful I loved. I'm grateful I was known. But surviving the people who knew you best means carrying a life that no one else remembers correctly. And that weight doesn't get lighter with time. There are moments, quiet ones, when I wonder why I'm still here. Not in a dramatic way, not in despair. Just wondering, like reaching the end of a book and realizing you're the only one still reading. I didn't outlive them because I was stronger. I didn't survive because I deserved to. I just stayed. And staying means waking up each day with a lifetime behind you and very few witnesses left to confirm it was real. And that's when the loneliness truly settles in, not because you're alone, but because the people who made your life make sense are gone. When the loneliness settles in, it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't knock. It doesn't ask permission. It just sits down beside you and stays. There's a particular kind of quiet that only comes after everyone else is gone. It isn't peaceful. It isn't dramatic. It's unfinished, like a conversation that stopped mid-sentence and never resumed. I feel it most in the mornings, not when I wake up, but when I realize there's no reason to hurry, no one waiting, no one expecting me. Time stretches out in front of me like an empty road, and instead of freedom, it feels like distance. People assume surviving is about endurance. They think it's about resilience, strength, grit, but survival at this stage is mostly memory management. It's deciding which memories you can afford to carry today and which ones will crush you if you touch them too closely. Some days I can remember everything. Some days I can't risk remembering anything at all. I still talk to them sometimes, not out loud, not in a way that would worry anyone, just small, quiet conversations in my head. I'll think of something funny and instinctively reach for the person who would have laughed first. Then I remember there's no one to hand it to anymore. The thought just falls back on me, unfinished. What people don't realize is this: when you lose everyone who knew you when you were becoming yourself, you don't just lose companionship, you lose confirmation. You lose the proof that your life unfolded the way you remember it. Because memory is fragile, and without someone else to say, "Yes, I remember that too," you start wondering how much of your past still exists at all. There are stories I'll never tell again, not because they aren't important, but because there's no one left who knows where to laugh, where to pause, where to understand the silence inside them. Stories need listeners who were there. Without them, they feel like invention. I've noticed something strange about being this old. People speak around you. They talk near you, but not to you. Over you, but not with you. They lower their voices, or raise them unnecessarily, or simplify things that don't need simplifying. They don't mean harm. They just don't see you as someone still carrying a full interior life. But I am. It's heavy, and it's crowded, and it's full of people who no longer breathe. Sometimes I sit in public places just to watch, not out of curiosity, out of recognition. I watch people laughing with friends, arguing about small things, checking their phones impatiently. They don't know how rare this is. They don't know how fragile these moments are. I want to tell them, but advice from someone who has already lost everything sounds like exaggeration to those who haven't lost much yet, so I stay quiet. The hardest part of surviving everyone isn't the grief. It's the accumulation. Loss piles up, and eventually it changes the way you relate to the future. You stop investing not because you don't care, but because caring costs more than it used to. Every connection now comes with a silent calculation. Will I outlive this too? People tell me to make new friends, join groups, stay social. Keep busy. They don't understand. At this age, friendship isn't about activity. I don't need someone to meet me as I am now. I need someone who remembers who I was when everything hadn't already happened. And there aren't many of those left. There's also guilt. No one warns you about that part. The guilt of being the one who stayed. The guilt of surviving the people who didn't get to. I replay moments sometimes, wondering why I'm still here when they aren't. There's no answer, just silence, but here's the truth I've learned, and it took me a long time to accept it. Survival isn't a reward. It's a responsibility. If you're the last one left, you become the keeper of everything that came before. The stories, the mistakes, the love, the laughter no one else remembers. You carry it not because you want to, but because someone has to. I used to resent that. The weight of it, the unfairness. Why do I have to be the one still standing? Why do I have to remember everything alone? But slowly, very slowly, that resentment softened into something else. Purpose. If I'm still here, then maybe my job isn't to replace what I lost. Maybe it's to honor it, to speak names that would otherwise disappear, to remember people as they actually were, not just how they're summarized after they're gone. To live in a way that says, you mattered, you still matter. There are days when the loneliness still wins, days when the quiet feels too heavy, days when I sit in my chair and let the hours pass without doing much of anything at all. I don't fight those days anymore. I let them exist. Survival has taught me that forcing strength only makes grief louder later. But there are the days too. Days when I feel a strange kind of calm. Not happiness, not peace, something steadier. Acceptance. I've come to understand this. Being the last one left doesn't mean your life is over. It means your life has changed shape. You stop living for accumulation and start living for meaning. You stop chasing new chapters and start tending to the ones already written. So if you're listening to this and you still have people who remember your old stories, your younger mistakes, your unpolished versions, hold on to them. Not desperately, not fearfully, just intentionally. Show up, because one day, one of you will be the one who stays. And the loneliness of survival is easier to carry when you know you showed up while you still could. As for me, I wake up each morning and I remember them all. And as long as I do, they aren't completely gone. I didn't win by living longer. I just stayed. And now I carry the lives that ended before mine forward, quietly, faithfully, one day at a time. If there's anything this life has taught me, time doesn't measure love by how long it lasts, but by how well we show up while it's here. The people who know your stories, your earlier selves, your unfinished sentences, they are the ones who make your life feel real. Hold them while you can. Listen more. Show up more, because one day, someone will be the one who stays. And what will matter most is knowing you didn't let the moments pass unnoticed.